From the last video you'll remember this was the crossroads from where we came through Yenikö and onwards to Geyikli, and now we're picking up on the main road to Troy, and we'll visit the site of Troy and the museum. If you need a guidebook or a tour guide of the war graves, then this is a good place to stop here for a coffee and a tea, and then buy Mustafa Ashkan's guide on both the war graves and the Troy historical site. Okay, so here we are at the entrance of Troy on a very, very windy day. And a huge wooden horse. Clearly not the one that was used in the famous Troy scenario, but nevertheless it's a wooden horse right in the middle of the square. This is the east wall, fortifications of Troy. The east tower, east wall, behind them the palaces of the Troy period, 1700 to 1250 BC. East wall and gate, east tower and palaces.
To reach Troy, you need to travel down the Çanakkale-Izmir highway, the E87 or D550. It is well signposted and near the village of Tevfikiye, some 25 kilometres from Çanakkale. The long straight road from the main highway takes you into Troy, or Truva as it is known locally. Troy, Troa, Ilium or Truva was the city at the centre of the Trojan War, described in Homer's Iliad. Prior to Troy being founded, the area is thought to have been known to the Hittites as Walusa. Ilium was established under the reign of the Roman Emperor Augustus and would have been one of the most important cities in this region until Constantinople arrived on the scene. The discovery of the site of Troy is often attributed to Heinrich Schliemann, a self-promoting businessman with a fascination for archaeology. However, a true archaeologist by the name of Frank Calvert had already excavated some areas of a field that he had purchased from a local farmer at Hisarlik. Frank Calvert met Heinrich Schliemann and was encouraged to excavate the eastern half of Hisarlik, which was on Calvert's land. An initially sceptical Schliemann soon realised that he was onto something, and excavations revealed that several cities had been built one on top of each other at this location.
This is the citadel between 2550 and 2200 BCE.
I should have wired you at the
Today, Troy is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and has been since 1998. With regular coach tours and a steady stream of visitors, this is a very well visited historical site. Many visitors to Troy are disappointed to find that there are no large structures standing, and all that seems to be on view are the foundations. Whilst this may be true, it is important to understand the significance of this historical site, and with a little imagination we can begin to understand how it might have looked. For those who are really interested in delving into the history and understanding the intricate details of Troy and the many levels and periods of its development, you're advised to hire a guide, since no short film or narrative can describe adequately the fine details of this complicated city or cities. Until recently, visitors and coaches would stop for a couple of hours before moving on to their next destination. However, there is now a brand new museum dedicated to Troy and the surrounding area and history, and this alone will take a good 2 hours to give it justice. So allow around 4 hours at least to visit Troy and the museum. The Trojan War is thought to have taken place in the 12th, 13th or 14th centuries. In Homer's Iliad, the Achaeans set up camp and laid siege to the great city of Troy, which stood on a hill overlooking the plains of Scamander, where the battles of the Trojan War took place. Although the site of Troy is 5 kilometres from the coast, it used to be much closer, but the sea silted up and the large natural harbour gradually became land. Troy is mentioned in Homer's Odyssey as well as in other Greek literary works. Alexander the Great is said to have visited Troy in 334 BC, and the nearby island of Tenedos is described in detail in Pirires' book, the Kitab i-Bahriye, Book of the Sea, in 1521, where Troy is described as lying in ruins opposite the island. Much of the history of Troy and the Trojan War is hard to verify. The stuff of myth and legends and the tale of the wooden horse may or may not be accurate. Troy was thought to be situated at Alexandra Troas, some 20 kilometres away, or even near the town of Esine. It wasn't until 1822 when a Scottish journalist by the name of Charles MacLaren became the first to identify with any degree of accuracy that Hisarlik was the site of the city of Troy. I mentioned Frank Calvert earlier. He was a British trade attaché in Çanakkale and a dedicated archaeologist. When he met Schliemann, he realised that the German amateur archaeologist had the funds and the means by which to make progress on the site at Troy, and although he is widely criticised for digging too deep and ruining much of the layer of the city of Troy, he did claim to have found Priam's treasure, which he managed swiftly to dispatch to Germany, and it ended up in the Berlin museums. Schliemann did not find Troy, but his self-promotion led others to believe that he did. Frank Calvert spent more than 60 years in Çanakkale and made a significant contribution to the archaeology and excavations at Troy. He played a major role in directing Heinrich Schliemann at Hisarlik, whilst Schliemann took all the credit for the findings. Despite Schliemann's excavations being condemned by future archaeologists, he was clearly an intelligent man who spoke numerous languages. It is unfortunate then that the damage he did is beyond repair. Excavations continue today, with the Çanakkale Onsekiz University taking the leading role. The story of the Trojan horse is about how the Greeks constructed a huge wooden horse which they left as a gift and then pretended to sail away defeated. The Trojans then pulled the horse into the city, and at night the Greeks crept out of the belly of the horse and opened the gates for the Greek army, thus sacking the city of Troy and winning the war. This famous story has led us to calling computer viruses Trojan horses after the fact they sneak in the back door and play havoc with our equipment. There is also the saying, beware of Greeks bearing gifts. In Çanakkale, the Trojan horse featured in the 2004 Brad Pitt film Troy takes pride of place on the seafront promenade. So having left the site at Troy, we can now travel back up the road to the Hisarlik Hotel, where the Troy Museum is literally opposite. This is an impressive museum. It opened in 2018 and houses exhibits from Troy and the surrounding area. Set in its own grounds, the first thing that you see is the cube-shaped building which cost $8 million to build. The rust-coloured cladding and the tinted glass windows look distinctive from the outside, but it is from within that you really get a handle on its perspective. Access is via a ramp to the underground reception area, where you get your first taste of what's to come. This beautiful museum, with its open spaces, glass flooring and cafe and souvenir shop, really does need at least 2 hours of your time to see it properly. The museum receives coach tours and has function rooms and conference facilities, as well as exhibition areas. The roof is of an open terrace type with spectacular views of the surrounding countryside. The main exhibits are on the 4 levels and in 7 sections. The museum opened on the 10th of October 2018. It contains a wide range of sculptures, friezes, terracotta, ceramics, jewellery, guns, coins, statues and figurines, and items returned from the US Pen Museum, along with collections from museums in and around Çanakkale. This is a very well put together museum, and a lot of effort has gone into bringing this all together. It would be such a shame if you visited Troy and not the museum, since they both complement each other nicely. For the exhibits that are not shown here, you might like to take a look at the Troy Myth and Reality exhibition, which opens at the British Museum on the 21st of November 2019. It features 300 objects dating back to the Bronze Age, with highlights on the stories of Helen, Paris, Achilles and the wooden horse. On loan from the Berlin Museum, it will showcase almost 100 of Schliemann's treasures, which were so conveniently spirited away to Germany, when in reality they probably should have remained in Troy. Well, that's it for now. Please give us a thumbs up if you liked the video, and why not subscribe? See you next time. Thanks for watching.
Modelos.